Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. If you've ever been hit by a truth so hard it knocks the breath out of you, you'll understand this story. You smell different, I said. She froze. Her fingers were still on the doorknob. A second earlier, she'd walked in humming something from the car radio, swaying slightly, like the night hadn't touched her. Like I didn't exist. But now she wouldn't even turn around. Don't play dumb, I said again, quieter this time. It's his cologne. It's not yours. It's not mine. She exhaled through her nose. Slowly, and I swear I saw her shoulders rise like she was rehearsing a lie in her head. I waited for the usual lines. It's just the club. You're being dramatic. Why are you even awake? But instead, she did something worse. She smiled. And not the kind that fixes anything. It was the kind of smile people wear when they think they've won. So I stood up from the couch. My legs were shaking. My hands were cold. I took 3 steps toward her and said something that wasn't planned, wasn't even thought out. It just came out of my mouth like my soul had pushed it through my teeth. I'd kiss you, but I don't want to taste your boyfriend. And just like that, she stopped smiling. Completely. Her lips parted like they forgot how to close. Her eyes darted across the room, maybe looking for a place to hide, or an excuse, or maybe just calculating how much I knew. She looked at me like I was holding a weapon, but I wasn't. I was holding something worse, the truth. The silence in the room was so heavy it started to feel like sound. My ears were ringing. My heart was louder than her footsteps when she backed away. Who? She whispered. It was all she could manage. I stared at her for what felt like a full minute. Do you want me to list them? I asked. That's when she panicked. Not loud, not theatrical, but quiet, the dangerous kind. The kind of panic that builds behind the eyes and spreads to the throat. The kind that makes liars sweat. She backed up into the wall like I might do something. But I didn't raise my voice. I didn't touch her. I didn't even move. And maybe that scared her more. Because for the first time in our 5-year marriage, I wasn't begging. I wasn't blaming myself. I wasn't asking what did I do wrong. I was just done. But the worst part? This wasn't the beginning of the end. It was already the middle. She didn't know that I'd followed her the week before. That I knew the name, the face, the car, the Airbnb. She didn't know about the receipt I found in her purse. She didn't know I had proof. She didn't know I had a plan. Not revenge. Nothing violent. Something quieter. More precise. More final. But I didn't say any of that. I just let the silence make her crumble. The silence stretched between us like a cracked bridge, too wide to cross, too dangerous to ignore. She still hadn't moved, not an inch. I stood there, waiting. For what? I don't know. An apology? A confession? Something real for once? Instead, her lips twitched like she was about to say something, and then she did the one thing I wasn't prepared for. She laughed, quietly at first, almost like a cough, then a dry little chuckle that didn't reach her eyes. Curtis, she said, you've always had a wild imagination. My chest tightened. There it was. The default defense. The gaslight special. My fault. My fantasy. My madness. She took a few steps toward me, arms crossed, trying to wear that old familiar smirk that used to charm me back in the early years. Are we really doing this at 2:30 in the morning? She asked. Because I'd like to sleep. That sentence, I swear, it bruised something inside me. Like I was the one interrupting her peace. Like her betrayal was just some bedtime inconvenience. I nodded slowly and walked past her to the kitchen. I opened the drawer by the sink. Not to grab anything dangerous, just a folded piece of paper I had tucked there the day before. Quietly, I unfolded it and laid it on the counter. What's that? She asked, tone suddenly tighter. She walked over and froze the moment she saw the top corner, the Airbnb logo. 2 nights, downtown. Reservation made from her email. Her name. Her credit card. That's not mine, she said, too quickly. It must be some scam. Her hands trembled as she picked it up. Someone must have, I interrupted her. Flip it over. She did. On the back, in faded red pen, something she didn't expect. A handwritten note. Loved every minute with you. See you next Friday. Jay. Her eyes snapped to mine, wide, furious, exposed. You went through my stuff? She whispered, as if that were the crime. I trusted you. I laughed bitterly. You trusted me not to find out. She stepped back again, but this time, something shifted. She wasn't defensive now. She was scared. Because she finally realized this wasn't an argument. This was evidence. And I wasn't angry anymore. I was something worse. Calm. Cold. Done. Curtis, wait, she started. No, I cut in. I waited long enough. I walked away, not toward the bedroom, but toward the garage. She called after me, voice cracking. But I didn't turn around. I had no more questions. Only answers. I didn't leave the house that night. I couldn't. I went to the garage like I said. But instead of starting the car, I sat down on the cold concrete floor with my back against the shelf where we keep the winter salt. My hands were still trembling. Not with anger. I was past that. It was the aftershock. That numbness when you realize the person sleeping next to you had a whole secret world behind your back, and worse, they thought you'd never find the door. I stared at the dark outline of the lawnmower for what felt like hours. At some point, I dozed off sitting upright. When I opened my eyes again, morning light was bleeding through the cracks in the garage door. Birds chirped like the world was normal. But nothing was. I stood up, brushed gravel from my palms, and walked into the kitchen. She was sitting at the table like she hadn't just shattered the man who'd done everything for her. Coffee in hand. Fresh makeup. Hair brushed. Morning, she mumbled, not looking up. I stared at her for a moment, then at the second mug across from her. My mug. She still poured me coffee. As if we were still playing husband and wife. As if nothing had happened. Who is Jay? I asked. She didn't blink. Didn't answer. Just picked up her phone and started tapping like I'd asked what the weather was. Sheila. Her fingers froze. She didn't look up. He drives a red Nissan, right? I asked. Four-door. You told me it belonged to your cousin last month when I saw it in the driveway. Her thumbs slowly lowered. The silence between us grew heavier than the walls. How long? I whispered. My voice cracked, and I hated how weak it made me sound. She finally looked at me. And her eyes, those soft, hazel eyes I once fell for, they looked empty now. Not sad. Not sorry. Just tired. 7 months, she said. Just like that. Like she was reading a calendar reminder. 7 months. 210 days. 1,000 little moments she chose someone else. I nodded. My throat tightened, but I forced it down. Why? It came out so soft I barely recognized my own voice. She sighed and looked away. Because he listens. That hit harder than anything else. Not because I didn't listen, but because I thought I did. All those nights I asked, how was work? Only to get one-word answers. All those texts I sent, all the Friday nights I suggested date night, and got brushed off. Maybe I stopped trying. Or maybe she stopped trying first. I didn't know anymore. I just knew I wasn't enough. Not for her. Not for the version of her that had grown bored of a husband who brought her flowers and stayed loyal without question. I wanted to scream. Throw something. Demand why I didn't matter. But instead, I sat down. Across from her. Across from the woman who used to be my home. And I stared at the mug she poured for me. Still warm. Still sweet. Still pretending. Just like she was. That same day, just after noon, she asked if she could go stay with her sister. Not forever. Just for a few days to clear my head, she said. Like I was the problem that needed space. Like I hadn't just been sucker punched by the truth she chose to keep from me for 7 months. I nodded. Not because I wanted her to leave, but because I couldn't look at her another minute without thinking about the man behind the red Nissan. The man who apparently listened better than me. Whatever that meant. She packed fast. 2 duffel bags, a makeup pouch, and her laptop. No hugs. No goodbyes. Just a quiet, awkward pat on the counter when she passed by me on the way out. Like I was a dog she couldn't fully make eye contact with. I stood at the window and watched as the car pulled out of our driveway. She didn't glance back once. The moment the taillights disappeared, I sat down on the stairs and finally cried. Not loud, not messy, just silent tears that refused to stop. I felt hollow, like something had been carved out of me while I wasn't looking. You spend years building something, routines, anniversaries, little in-jokes about cereal or commercials, and then suddenly, none of it means anything. All it takes is one person getting bored, one lie turning into 10, one secret note scribbled on the back of an Airbnb receipt. But here's the thing I hadn't told her. I already knew what he looked like. I'd seen him. Not in passing. I met him. That's the part one can't stop thinking about. 2 weeks ago, I was called out to a service job downtown. An elevator jammed between the 9th and 10th floors at an office building. When I got there, the receptionist said someone was still trapped inside, waiting patiently. I pried open the panel, worked the system, and finally got it moving again. When the doors opened, a man stepped out. Tall, nice shoes, confident smile. He thanked me, said, "You saved my lunch meeting," and handed me a $10 bill. He said his name was Jackson. He smelled like the cologne I noticed on Sheila's coat the night she came home late. I didn't think anything of it at the time. Just a weird déjà vu feeling. But now I realize. I shook hands with the man sleeping with my wife. He looked me in the eye and smiled like I was doing him a favor. And I smiled back like an idiot. The memory made my stomach turn. I wanted to throw something, break something, scream at the walls. But I didn't. Instead, I went to the hall closet, grabbed the small fireproof lockbox we used for passports and important documents, and opened it. Inside was the ring I gave her when I proposed under the Christmas lights in downtown Cedar Falls. I stared at it for a long time. Then I placed it in a small padded envelope, sealed it, and left it on her nightstand. I didn't leave a note. I didn't need to. She'd know what it meant. This wasn't a threat. This wasn't revenge. This was me saying, "I finally see you for who you are." And I was done pretending otherwise. Sheila returned 2 days later. Not with a knock, not with a call, just the sound of the door unlocking like it still belonged to her. I was in the kitchen scraping burnt eggs off a pan when I heard it. The door creaked, then silence. For a moment, I thought maybe I imagined it, until her voice followed. "Curtis?" She called out, soft and uncertain, like the way you'd test a floorboard before stepping on it. I didn't answer right away. I just stood there, hand gripping the spatula like it might do something other than flip failure. She walked into the room slowly. Fresh makeup, curled hair, tight jeans, like she dressed for war and didn't want to look like she was losing. Her eyes landed on me, then drifted to the empty coffee cup on the counter. For some reason, that's what made her flinch. "You haven't slept," she said quietly. "Neither have you," I replied. We stood there like strangers auditioning for a scene neither of us wanted to be in. Then she finally spoke the line I had expected since the day she left. "I made a mistake." It didn't hit the way she probably thought it would, because by then, I'd already lived 1,000 versions of that sentence in my head. I'd imagined her saying it while crying, saying it while yelling, saying it with regret so loud the neighbors could hear. But this version? Flat, robotic, performed. "What kind of mistake?" I asked. She hesitated. "It wasn't what you think." I actually laughed at that. Not a fun laugh. A bitter one that tasted like poison. "Oh, did you not sleep with him? Did the Airbnb cancel itself?" She didn't answer. Her face tightened. "I thought I needed something different," she said, like that would clarify anything. "He made me feel seen. And I didn't." My voice cracked again. I hated that. I wanted to sound firm, cold, above all of it. But it kept bleeding out of me, the hurt. She shook her head. "You did. You always did. That's the problem." I stared at her. What does that even mean? And then she said something that nearly buckled my knees. "You never challenged me. You were too easy to hurt." I went quiet. Not because I didn't understand, but because I understood too well. I was the soft place she fell when the world got sharp. I was the backup generator when her real thrills flickered out. I was never her first storm, just her shelter. And now she was back. Not because she loved me, not because she missed us, but because the fantasy she chased didn't last. She came back because she expected me to still be here, still waiting, still willing to hold her broken pieces like they hadn't already cut me open. "You want your ring?" I asked. She blinked. "What?" "It's on the nightstand," I said. "Next to everything else you left behind." Her face cracked then, a real crack. The kind that comes when you realize the safety net's been pulled. But I didn't comfort her. Not this time. Because for once, I needed her to feel the fall. After that night, things got quiet. Too quiet. Sheila didn't leave again. She stayed in the guest room and pretended like we were working things out. But we weren't. Not really. We barely spoke. The house felt like a museum. Like a place full of objects with no meaning anymore. Toothbrushes beside each other. Coats hanging side by side. A calendar with plans we'd never lived through. And then there was her phone. That glowing rectangle of secrets. For years, I respected her privacy. Never looked. Never asked. Never needed to. But that morning, she forgot it on the kitchen counter. I noticed the screen was lit up. Still unlocked. And I swear to you, I didn't plan on touching it. I just stared. Until something flashed on the screen. A notification. Jackson. That name alone made my heart race. The preview was only a few words, but enough to twist something inside me. "Last night was unfair. I miss your skin." I didn't mean to open it, but my thumb had already moved, like it wasn't mine anymore. The message thread scrolled deep. Too deep. Photos. Voice notes. Hotel check-ins. Complaints about me. Mocking me. Things like, he's still so soft. He apologizes when I bump into him. I just sat there, frozen, reading all the ways she'd turned me into a joke. Into background noise. Into something weak and disposable. They'd been mocking me for months. I even found a meme she sent him. A cartoon of a man holding flowers while his wife kisses another guy in the next panel. The caption read, "Still clueless." That one stayed with me. I couldn't breathe. I put the phone down, stood up, and walked straight into the garage. This time, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat in the driver's seat and gripped the steering wheel like I was trying to hold myself together. When I finally came back in, she was in the living room scrolling through the TV menu like nothing was wrong in the world. She didn't even notice her phone was gone until it buzzed on the table. She looked at me. I looked at her. And in that moment, she knew. Not because I said anything, but because I didn't need to. Her face dropped. Panic flickered. She opened her mouth, but I raised my hand. "Don't," I said. "Just don't insult me with whatever speech you've got lined up." She closed it, turned away, and for a second, I thought she might cry. But she didn't. Instead, she stood up, walked to the window, and stared out like she was waiting for someone to save her. "You don't understand," she muttered. "You never did." And that's when it hit me. She wasn't sorry. Not really. She was just cornered. And the worst part? She still thought this was fixable. Still thought I'd fold, because I always had. But this wasn't a bruise. This was rot. Deep, slow, deliberate decay. I went upstairs, locked the bedroom door behind me. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I started planning how to leave. I began packing the following afternoon. Not loudly, not in boxes, just small things. Essential things. My passport, bank documents, birth certificate. I tucked them into a duffel bag I hadn't used in years. The one from our failed weekend getaway to Lake Geneva. The one where she said she had food poisoning and spent most of the trip texting in the bathroom. I never questioned it then. I didn't want to. Now, I couldn't stop questioning everything. Every compliment. Every "I love you." Every touch. Were they real? Or just placeholders until someone better showed up? I had no answers. Only hours of memory that now felt contaminated. My plan was simple. Wait until Friday, when she'd be gone again. She mentioned some fake, networking dinner, with a laugh that didn't even bother trying to be convincing, and just leave. Quietly. No scene. No letters. No note taped to the mirror. Just gone. I didn't want to fight. I didn't want closure. I wanted peace. I wanted out. But peace wasn't what I got. Thursday evening, just after sunset, she walked into the bedroom without knocking. I was sitting on the edge of the bed, lacing my boots. She stood in the doorway like she was posing for a photo she didn't want taken. "You've been quiet," she said. "Is that your new way of punishing me?" I didn't answer. She stepped closer. "You're not talking to me, but you still live here. That's a choice, Curtis." Her voice had shifted, no longer apologetic or defensive. It was colder now, sharper, like she was trying to regain control of a room that no longer listened to her. I looked up, calm. "I was waiting for the right time to leave," I said. Her mouth twitched. "You're not serious." I nodded once. "I am." She stared at me for a long time. Then she did something that caught me completely off guard. She laughed, not like before. Not bitter or sarcastic. This laugh was relieved. I furrowed my brows. "What's funny?" She sat on the chair across from me and crossed her legs, eyes scanning me like I was a dull article she had to skim. "You think this is about heartbreak," she said. "But Curtis, this was always about control." I blinked. "What are you talking about?" She smiled, leaned forward. "You leaving? That's the easy part. But what you don't realize is, I already beat you." My blood ran cold. "What?" She reached into her purse and pulled out a thick envelope. Tossed it onto the bed beside me. "Credit card statements. Your name. Charges you never made. Accounts you didn't open. A trail." I stared at it, stunned. "Why would you?" "Because," she cut in, "I needed leverage. Insurance. I didn't think I'd use it. But you surprised me, Curtis. You grew a spine too late." My hands were shaking. "You committed fraud? Prove it," she said calmly. "Or better yet, don't. Just go. Vanish like a coward. That way, when the consequences come, you won't even be here to explain them." I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I stood up. My voice was quieter than I expected. "Why are you doing this?" She stood, 2. Met my gaze without flinching. Because I want the last word. And with that, she turned and walked out of the room like she hadn't just detonated the last piece of my sanity. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the envelope for hours. She wasn't just cruel. She was calculated. And I was running out of time. But one thing was clear. If I didn't outsmart her, I wouldn't just lose my dignity. I'd lose everything. By sunrise, I knew what I had to do. Sheila thought she had buried me in paperwork, like I'd just drown in quiet panic and disappear beneath the weight of her threats. But she underestimated me. Again, before I left, I did one thing she never expected from the soft, broken version of me she had grown to mock. I copied everything in that envelope. Every fraudulent charge. Every account. Every detail. I scanned them, labeled them, and stored them in a secure folder in the cloud. Then I emailed them to myself, and to an attorney I had quietly contacted weeks ago, after I first found the Airbnb receipt. His name was Alvin Garrison. Old school guy, but sharp. He called me an hour after I sent the files. "You've got her cornered," he said. "Now get out before she claws her way out of it." So I did. I packed my things, not just the duffel this time, but everything that mattered. The ring box, my dad's watch, the photo of my mother that Sheila never wanted framed. I left the keys on the counter. No goodbye, no note, just silence. When she woke up, the house was empty. No Curtis. No truck in the driveway. No one to argue with. I didn't run. I relocated. I moved to Traverse City, took a job at a small elevator repair company run by a man who still shakes your hand and means it. I rented a quiet cabin outside town, near the woods. Peaceful, honest, real. In time, the legal pieces fell into place. Sheila never fought the divorce. Probably because she knew what Alvin had. Hard evidence and a timeline that made it clear who betrayed who. She walked away with less than she planned. I walked away with my name, my credit, my freedom, and something else she never thought I'd have again, hope. I'm not saying I've fully healed. Some nights I still wake up hearing her laugh. Sometimes I still blame myself for trusting her too long. But each day gets quieter, softer, mine. And I've learned something too. Kindness isn't weakness. Loyalty isn't blindness. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply walking away with your dignity, while they're still waiting for you to fall apart. So to anyone listening, anyone who's been used, manipulated, broken, you're not as powerless as you think. You're just one bold decision away from being free. Thank you for watching this story on Reddit Confessions. If you've ever had to walk away from someone who underestimated you, or if you've ever surprised yourself with strength you didn't know you had, we'd love to hear about it. Drop your story in the comments and tell us. What's a moment in history, personal or global, where someone turned the tables in an unexpected way? And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to Reddit Confessions for more gripping tales that dig deep into the human heart.